Hey guys, Carosa here, Body by Carosa. How's everybody doing? Hope you're all faring well. Coming at you today with a video that is basically an easier way to respond to a question that a former athlete of mine had from years ago working at an older facility. Had a question about some lower back stiffness and tightness due to some overdeveloped muscles back here, and how to kind of undo that and engage the right musculature to have to stop having some lower back pain. So without giving you too much information about who that person is, to give you an idea, they came in and the observations that I made, were based off of just watching them do their movements and stuff. I never did the eval or anything on them or did their programming. I just monitored and helped with their coaching. So just to keep that in mind. But they were, I don't want to say like pretty flexible, but pretty, seemed like a very, a good athlete, moved well, picked the movements well, moved through things like barbell hang cleans and stuff like that. He did do mostly weightlifting at the facility with us, Olympic weightlifting. So, and there was some other assistance movements that were done with that, but it was mostly Olympic weightlifting. That being said, if you take into mind what those movements make people do, it's called relative flexibility. So you might not necessarily have really good control in a specific range of motion, but under a load or under a specific circumstance, you might be able to get into that position. Doesn't mean that position is good for you, or that you're going to be able to maintain those positions or replicate those positions later on in life without pain or discomfort or something happening. So relative flexibility, like in the bottom of catching like a heavy snatch, right? Which would mean like, even though my, sitting on the ground way too long. So let's say, right, barbell snatching, and I didn't really have the lower back or the abdominal mobility and strength to keep a neutral spine, catching the bottom. So I might catch that snatch and still get all the way in the bottom, but maybe my lower back or my hips are doing some weird stuff to allow myself down there. So that's relative flexibility, right? That being said, you can fix that. You can correct that with the right mobility and whatnot. So that's what we're going to do today. So current activities, I know this individual is pretty active outdoors. So you have to take things like that into effect and into account when you're thinking about what kind of stuff, like let's say you're thinking about what to do for yourself, or if you are a coach and you're trying to coach other people, right? It's a matter of like not just what they're doing activity-wise for their sports, but also what they do outside of their sports. Because if they spend an hour a day doing A, they spend 23 hours a day doing all these other things. So taking that into account. One of the easiest ways too to kind of correct some pain or issues in areas that I have found with people is just correct motor patterning or movement patterning, right? So being able to hip hinge correctly, being able to flex your shoulder correctly and stuff a lot of times comes from just practicing actually moving your joints in the right planes of motion and stuff. So that being said, I'm going to show you on myself, because I had some similar issues when I was younger as this athlete, and kind of still do because of work. I drive a lot. In addition to being a personal trainer, I have some other jobs, and because of that, I'm in some pretty crappy positions with my hips. So I have to be aware of that if I want to be able to lift and mountain bike and snowboard and do all the things that I like to do that are fun and intense on my body. If I don't pay attention to that stuff and work on that stuff in addition to keeping myself strong, then I end up having the straw that broke the camel's back, right? It's not fun dealing with pain. So for example, some movement patterning. This individual, a lot of times, or I should say myself, and a lot of individuals I see that have these overdeveloped spinal erectors, right? Really, really strong spinal kind of muscles back here, right? We tend to bend a lot naturally right there, or we might so me personally, I worked at a wholesale nursery years ago, and because of that, being in a position all the time, doing things with plants and stuff, I kind of hung on my spine there, and just lack of knowing that I was doing that to myself developed these really, really rigid spinal muscles down here. So that being said, is something that I have to do all the time, or that I remind myself to do all the time, as well as clients, right? Is hip hinging correctly, right? Being able to sit into your hips and using the hamstrings and the butt with a neutral core, right? And not overarching through the core. We see that a lot in weightlifters, right? You guys want to take up my shirt here, make it a little bit easier. Tend to see weightlifters right, to be a little excessive with that lower back anterior tilt, right, because of that power position, right, so from coming up, right, like that, and we tend to get that kind of positioning in the bottom and stuff, right, so because of that, right, we have to kind of undo that, right, we have to make sure that the anterior part of our body is not just strong, but also lengthened correctly, right, we don't want to create short hip flexors that pulls into that hip issue, right, we also want to make sure that we're kind of decompressing the lower spine here, because that excessive arch can really mess up, right, into your vertebrae here and stuff, right? And again, we're trying to stop the spinal erectors from doing that extension work. We're trying to get the butt more so involved, right? So that being said, if we do some specific mobilization with that, okay, versus just trying to stretch and willy-nilly doing whatever, we do maybe some couch stretches. If you can't do that, or hip flexor stretching, right? A lot of people, right? Everybody knows about the hip flexor stretch. This guy, everybody cranks into it, right? But that's not really too good, right? You want to be really driving into this part by keeping yourself down, coming forward with it. That's what's going to lengthen this and stop that hip from getting tilted and stuff in there, okay? There's also the variations, the couch stretch, right? So you're here like this, okay? Coming up. Same thing, you want to make sure that you're pulled down enough, right, that you're not excessive into that lower back, because if you're doing that, you're not stretching into your hip flexor, you're just cranking on that tight and just compressing that lower back more. So making sure to pull down, flexing forward, trapping the knee down, and getting that big stretch through here. A lot of times lower back tightness, we see the quads, right, especially weightlifters too, and just if you work out in general, if you're active in general, right, this individual, I know, again, outdoors, hiking and stuff like that, usually your quads are pretty strong. Okay, when you have tightness in your quads, you tend to have some lower back issues, right, because of a lack of mobility through the hip into the quad, into the knee area. So this couch stretch is really awesome. Okay, took me a long time when I was much younger and much more pliable than my 35-year-old self now. There was no way that I could get this leg here, okay, with a pretty good position, right? That thing was like stuck way far down there, and it hurt, right? It takes a long time to get up in here. I'm a little tight myself from running earlier and stuff. I didn't really take care of myself today. So you can see it. I'm a little tight today. Got to hydrate a little more, right? But it takes time. It's about doing this stuff all the time, right? So the couch stretch, that's a really good one. You have your figure 4, which I like a lot because of the way it helps with external rotation of the hip while keeping your lumbar in a really safe position. All right, so hopefully you can see me here. All right, we're going to go like this. We're going to trap that ankle over the knee, and we're going to push using the musculature here. We're not going to use our hand. We're going to use the hip itself to push out against there, making sure, while you're doing this, make sure this hip doesn't shift and crank, because then all you're doing is cranking around the QL like that, and you're going to bother yourself, right? You're going to end up causing some pain because you're not actually stretching that external rotation. So from this side, maybe it's a little easier, right? Again, we're going over that knee. And you're going to notice one side is going to be different than the other. That's very natural, depending on what you do for a living, what you do for fun, right? What you do for workouts and stuff, right? So pulsing into that, okay? These guys are great to do before a regular workout, as well as holding them more of a static issue, right? I like to do dynamic stretching before a workout, right? Slowly easing into a range of motion. And then after a workout, I might crank around this and just hang out there for 2 minutes or so. Really slamming into that soft tissue, okay? Oh, also, we got a supine leg raise. This guy, super great because, okay, hopefully you guys can still see me. Really quick, hamstring, a lot of times people are like, oh, my hamstring's tight. Really, it's not tight. It's a lack of activation through the right core, or through the core musculature. It's a lack of hip stability and lumbopelvic hip and spinal stability here. So, really quickly, okay, you lay on your back, nice and flat, okay? You're going to activate your abdominals, right? So kind of pull the navel in, not by sucking in. When we say draw the navel in, we don't mean suck the belly in like you're trying to show off that you don't have a belly or flatten your stomach. Drawing the navel in means tilting the hips, right? So hips are like a bucket of water. Think about moving that water around so you feel your abdominals turn on. From here,
We're going to keep our feet dorsiflex, which means our feet pull up towards our shins a little bit. And we're going to drive up with our locked knees, only as high as the hamstring and the abdominals allow without my knee bending, right? If that knee bends, you went too high. So you're going to pull up nice and tall, and you're going to lower under control. This is a great way to not only lengthen the hamstrings in the right way, but also strengthen your abdominals and strengthen those hip muscles, okay? Obviously, you're going to do both sides. Some people get a little clicking in the hip. You might have heard that. I'm not sure if you can hear it in the video. That's usually normal. One of the easiest ways to kind of take away from that is just making sure your hips are in a good position by glute bridging. Glute bridging is one of the corrective exercises that we were going to do anyway in this video, right? Bridging from the butt is a great way to strengthen the glutes. And the stronger your glutes are, the less you're going to use that lower back, okay? So even though you might be able to deadlift or squat and all that stuff, right? Being really strong in very simple positions like the glute bridge is really, really helpful. What else we got? Let's see. Downward dog. Downward dogs are a great way to help lengthen and get your spine working correctly. This one, very typical yoga move, right? A lot of people really butcher this by really cranking, and you see a lot of people like, oh, it's so great for your hamstrings, this and that, and they do this, right? And I have a little bit of a shorter torso to longer leg length, right? So this is really good for people who kind of have that issue too, to see this. Because what happens is people go like this, and they crank up, and then they get here, and they're like, oh, cool, and then they crank around lower back, like that, right? For those of us that have some hip or lower back issues, that might be a little excessive. So what you want to do is stabilize, right? And as you come up, lifting through the hips first, extending into the scapula. And you can see about there, right? I'm getting a nice hit on my hamstrings. Man, those guys are nice and tight right now. And I'm keeping that lumbo-pelvic hip area nice and neutral as best as I can. You can see, right? I'll be lazy about it, boom, right? Active about it, right? Making sure my back and spine is all neutral. Coming back forward into it, right? Working this range of motion is a great way to loosen that up as well as strengthen it. Alrighty? Dead bugs. I do dead bugs all the time in videos. You guys know that, right? They're really great for you. I think they're one of the best ab exercises, right? I'm going to show you from the side here. What you want to do is, I can't do it because of the way the video is, you want to push into the couch, okay? So I'll show you from the side, and then I'll turn and show you again. So you'd be here like this, you'd be pushing into the couch, you start up like that, okay? If these are very intense, if lowering the leg all the way out straight is way too hard for you with a neutral back, okay? You want to start with a modified dead bug like this. Come down with a neutral back, come back up at your knee. Opposite knee, up, okay? And then you can progress out to here. Okay, but you want to try and get here, nice and long with that leg. Feel the front, right, the anterior part of your body. Feel that lengthen as your leg comes out. You don't want to just flop to the ground. You want it to pull through that hip. Feel the muscle pull out of the hip and then engage on the way back up, right? So again, from here, you're going to hold on to the couch, press into it a little bit. Make sure it's a heavy couch. You don't want to be pushing that couch all over the floor, okay? And then again, you're here, boom, opposite. Make sure you keep breathing deep through your nose, in and out through your nose this whole time. And then just some ab marching is great for you as well, okay? Really quick, on your back, lower back is flat, okay? You're gonna pull one knee up, other knee up, right? Doing some high reps of these guys. These guys are like 20 reps, really good for you. What else we got? I think that's about it. So that should be it for this video, right? So if you got the couch stretch or the hip flexor stretch, if you can't do the couch stretch, if it hurts, right? I didn't show you the half kneeling rock back. This is another one. Got half kneeling rock back. Last one, right? So we had couch stretch with the figure four, okay? Half kneeling rock back. This guy here, one leg out to your side, lower a little bit so you can see me better, right? You want to make sure that hip is down, your nice neutral spine. and you're gonna sit back just a little bit into that groin, boom, like that. Just right back, right? Don't go too far. If you go too far, you're gonna start to tuck underneath yourself like that, and we're kind of going into those spinal erector muscles again and allowing them to activate. We wanna stretch out that groin area. So, kneeling rock back, figure 4, couch stretch. You got some dead bugs, downward dogs, right? Watching the position on that. If you are weightlifting right now, right, and you notice that you do create those positions, right, in those power positions, right, from a snatch or a clean, making sure that maybe you're undoing that lower body, right, a little bit when you can, okay? At marching, the supine straight leg raise, right? And the last but not least is playing with your hips in a push-up plank position. Can be a great way to learn to undo that lower back, right? So that's excessive tilt. This is posterior tilt, right? Sorry, that's anterior tilt, posterior tilt, right? So you're just gonna play with that a little bit. Let's see if you can neutralize. And while you're doing this, right, courtesy of Kelly Starrett and Mobility Wad, okay? You gotta breathe deep, right? While you're in this position, play with your hips a little bit, right? See if you can arch, see if you can posteriorly tilt, right? Get those abs working in different ways that you're not used to, okay? Work on that for a couple of weeks, and then we'll get some other stuff going. Hope you enjoyed.